Hey, Bry Guy here for this Pixel Artist Reacts, and today we're going to be playing Alex Kidd in Miracle World DX. Let's give it a go. So, right off the bat, this was one of my wife's games that she grew up with, so she had a lot of fun with this when she was a kid, and she always recommends that I play it with her. So, yeah, it's a game that's true to her heart. I've played it, me and her played it through a few years back, but this one here is the remake. So right off the bat, you have some things that are like in pixel art world and some things that aren't. So I'm kind of curious what kind of things there are. So it looks like they have this slight wash over the entire scene. Like the bluish color of the background is over my character. Same with this character here. You have these god rays in the top left and these foreground trees, and they're not pixel art by the looks of things. They're almost more of the comic-y style you get at the beginning. And we're getting kind of more of a mishmash than we usually do in games that are trying to modernize pixel art. Another thing you get is this deformation on these plants and these like leaves as they come, the grass as it comes up as you run over it, and the distortion on the grass. Now, personally, I would have done it as pixel art animations that trigger when you run over them, instead of just distorting the actual thing, because when this does that, it doesn't look like pixel art, and it's kind of something that I personally usually try to avoid. I try to keep everything as perfectly pixel on the grid as I possibly can. The gradient and the wash, that's a pretty common thing we're seeing with modern games trying to modernize their pixel art. They just have slight color washes on things to try to create visual cohesion that you didn't really get with classic pixel art games. Now let's see how this differs from the original. So, obviously this is a fair bit more crude. Like, the animations are very, very low, low frame rate. When it comes to the character, I really like this character design, but I'm not sure how I feel about the scarf. Waterfall animation in the background is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about the scarf here, because it's not a pixel art element, and it's always kind of breaking the grid of the pixels, so it's weird to have an element that's attached to the character, so inconsistent with the design of everything, but in general, I think that obviously it's a big step up from the original. I do wish these enemies and stuff, because they drew Alex from the 2/3 view. You can see he's 2/3 and side in the original, but these enemies are just side view, and I kind of wish that they would have picked a consistent angle to draw everything from. I think that might have helped some of this stuff look a little bit better in that regard, but, you know, these are just different ways you can approach trying to modernize a game with pixel art. So here we have the god rays, and we have, yeah, so sun shafts or god rays, whatever you want to call them. But they typically, like, they're blending as, they're just blending with the scene. That can actually be pretty hard on performance sometimes if you have lots of them, because there's so many pixels being affected by the ones behind it. And then we have this, like, wash over caustic effect that is distorting, but that also is not a pixel art effect. So, yeah, I mean, some of these ways they're making the game trying to make it look more modern. Some are probably a little bit more successful than the other. Like, I think the color grading and the sun shafts work out pretty well. The foreground elements, I kind of wish they were more obviously pixel art. Another thing that I've noticed is I think if you look at the mountains back here, they're not the same size pixels as everywhere else. I'm guessing the pixel resolution here, I'm just trying to figure it out if my hair matches the side of this building. It looks like some things are not quite the same exact pixel size. They're close, but they're just a little bit off, which is making it kind of hard to judge. I think that, you know, obviously having a perfectly consistent pixel art canvas goes a long way. I think this is, I would say it's probably 640 by 360 in comparison to the original, which is definitely probably much less. I don't know, it is 120 or something, maybe 240. Oh, I keep getting too big with this red thing. Okay, so the same kind of distortion, sliding grass and stuff. I mean, they've done a lot to make the remake feel a lot more animated, which adds some life to the game that it otherwise wouldn't have. You know, a lot more parallax with the clouds and moving at different speeds, and 3 different parallax layers with the mountains in the background to give this sense of distance. I do feel like the calculation of speed for the mountains is a bit different than I would have set, but it still works overall in creating scene depth. In some ways, it seems like they might have improved the animation, because it's like, how many frames is that? 1, 2, 3. So it looks like they may have added a few more frames to some enemies, but other enemies they keep more or less the same. Okay. Almost done. Alright. These pixel art remakes are always interesting, because it's this question the developers have to face as to what they're going to modernize, what they're not going to, what generation features are they going to, because it's like the parallax and stuff that they add that wasn't in the original. I mean, that's just, it was in some NES games, it was in a lot of, virtually all of the Super NES and Genesis games, but those kind of things definitely change the way that the game looks. Okay, rock, paper, scissors, which one's this? Oh, let's see. Okay, let's pick scissors. So it's kind of weird to go to non-pixel art elements there for this specifically. I think I would have preferred to have these big portrait sprites that come on be pixel art as well. I think that would have definitely improved the overall look of it. Okay, I think the last one might be rock. Let's see. Come on, be rock. Oh no! Comes down to the wire. Let's see. Rock again. I like this enemy design. I think that's pretty good. I think they could have maybe done a little bit more uneven in the animation to help with the overall look of that. I do wish that these big sprites were pixel art. I think that would have gone a long way if they were the same resolution pixel art as the base scene. Okay, I like the map. The map turned out pretty nice, I feel. Let's see this. Okay, let's go to the classic look. I love how the water is literally just colored changing little dot sprites versus this, which is doing caustics. The octopus animation's pretty interesting. They did a pretty good job with their designs, having personality and feeling unique. It's all of this. It's like, it's such a question of limitations. There's so much you can do with this kind of things and figuring out where you want to modernize, where do you want to keep it the same, you know, what's going to hurt the feel of the original. And I think they overall succeeded very well, other than I think the scarf's a little weird and a couple other things are a little weird. I don't mind the god rays and the caustics as much. Some of the foreground and the caustics, I think maybe they come off a little too strong, but anyways. This is a pretty solid attempt at modernizing a classic game. I think this is the level I have the biggest problem with, and the reason I do is because even things like this with the lava, the grass behind it makes it really hard to read this scene. So it would have been much better to have, in my opinion, it would have been much better to have the grass not be behind it like it is in the original, so that it's just easier to figure out what's going on in the scene. Trees are nice. I think they could have done with a more consistent lighting direction, but the moving little particles are nice. I do kind of wish that instead of circles, they were pixels. That could have gone a long way to just adding cohesion as well, although they wanted to scale them up or down. So that character sprite is great. I think that some of the character work on the non-enemy characters, like the NPCs and Alex, as well as some of the bosses are the better pixel art in this game. But I mean, overall, I think they did a pretty good job. seems like a pretty massive improvement from the primary Mick Kids look of the original game with just such crude base colors. I mean, the music, in some ways this is like, just trying to listen between. I think it could have used a bit more of like chiptunes in there to give off more of a classic feel rather than the instrumentation, but that's, I love chiptunes, so that's somewhere that my opinion might vary from other people. See, I like the design of the fish more than those dragons because the fish are drawn from the same 2/3 kind of viewpoint as Alex, whereas the dragons are drawn from different viewpoints. Oh no, it was at the end. Okay. Just skipping over most of the level. Oh no. Okay. Well, anyways, that was Alex Kidd in Miracle World. So, yeah, overall a really solid job. Even with these blocks, they have a gradient of color to blend with them. And you know, it's a hard thing when you're working on a classic game like this. Where do you modernize it? Where do you keep it the same? Where is it going to hurt that kind of appeal? Where is it improving things? I mean, they did a great job with animation, I feel, over the board, and with improving the overall like punchiness of the game. The giant fist punches are pretty good. I don't think they have that. You do have that in the original, so they do alternate fists, which is cool. I don't think the original does. No, it's just one sprite frame animation. But you know, it's a hard thing to do when you're remaking a game. You're trying to make the, hopefully some of the original people that played the original found this and they're having a good time with it. I know that my family did. So this is Alex Kidd in Miracle World, and yeah, I think they added a lot of good things. They added parallax all over the place to add it up to date with more modern pixel art games and even later generations in the Sega Master System. They pushed the overall post-processing to try to modernize it, and that's what they decided to do with this game. So anyways, hope you had a good time. I'll catch you all on the next one.